But why has there never been a decent adaptation of 40K? That's what I want to know.
Something which I love about Games Workshop is that they've been very protective of their IP. And I think that's a great decision and very wise. That'd be something I'd be very excited to do.
Yes. Henry Cavill is Eisenhorn.
I mean, I don't know about Eisenhorn necessarily. When you've got Valdor and Primarchs out there, then it just seems a shame to be a mere Inquisitor. But I'm glad they have protected their IP.
Yeah.
And there haven't been just loads of TV shows and movies and stuff done poorly. It needs to be handled perfectly.
Yeah.
It needs to be handled to a Lord of the Rings level. And if it's not, I'll be massively disappointed. Maybe I could be the guy who does Lord of the Rings
for Warhammer
level of Warhammer 40K or 30K.
What time period should Henry Cavill start with for Warhammer 40K? Which books should he focus on? May I just say first that what I absolutely love about Warhammer is the sheer depth of it and the scope. Never mind the quality of the writing, there is so much to Warhammer 40K, and being faced with so much of it is a wonderful problem to have if you're a showrunner looking to dive in. Secondly, before I get to rambling on, I appreciate your thoughts and feedback. Feel free to comment below what you think on the topic, including something you might like to see me do a video about. I'll consider all serious replies. Okay, back to the subject. I saw another channel speak on this about the books that Henry should adapt to screenplay, or at least be based on, and they gave a clear answer that Henry Cavill should not do the Horus Heresy. That doing the Horus Heresy would be ruinous in money and effort and beyond the ability of a new producer, Henry Cavill, at least to start with.
If they start off with the Horus Heresy, then the show is fucked. Too much happens for it all to be compressed into a viewable format, not to mention the disgusting budget needed. No, Henry Cavill and co need to avoid doing a show based off Space Marines, Primarchs or Custodians.
Blasphemy!
I understand what the guy was saying, but I also disagreed on some points. Yes, an easier route would be to focus on later books, the Kane books, Eisenhorn, Gaunt's Ghosts, and then for those books and afterwards he can reference the events of the past and have flashbacks from the Horus Heresy, or really anything, the Age of Enlightenment and so on. I suspect this would be done anyway, even for a Horus Heresy, should that be the main effort. There were, after all, other ages before the Heresy whose events would certainly be worth looking at. However, if going with a later period series like Gaunt's Ghosts, flashbacks from the Heresy can be included for any number of reasons. Not uncommon in writing to do such a thing. As an example, an episode starts with a scene from the Horus Heresy showing a Space Marine captain wielding a unique sword or battle dagger in combat. We get a little story and dialogue, and then the warrior falls in battle, his sword falling into a pond. Then there is a time-lapse fast forward to the same place in the 40K period, and someone finds the weapon, a scavenger or a husband out for a walk after having an argument with his wife over his being conscripted into the militarium. And then suddenly, he has this weapon as possibly a sign that this was his destiny to be a warrior. The writers can then center on this guy and his exploits. Maybe this is Gaunt, or another notable figure, or they just continue the cycle. He falls in battle, the sword ends up in the hands of someone else, or whatever. We could get major characters simply having a dream about the events of the Heresy, or get short flashbacks to battles and conversations that may have some relevance to whatever is happening in a particular scene or episode. These flashbacks can be expanded as a show or a movie goes on, getting more and more of them or longer versions as time goes, and interest in the content builds, presumably with an increase to the budget. I do see some wisdom in this approach, practically. However, I personally think this is not the best approach and that the Horus Heresy can be done without bankrupting Amazon or doing a disservice to it by being too cheap or frugal.
God wills it!
It will require a big initial expense. Amazon hasn't shown reluctance, though, to just blow huge amounts of money on a series. Rings of Power. I don't think it will be too hard for Henry to avoid the wastefulness and extravagant spending that was done for Rings of Power, who just blew money stupidly.
I take responsibility.
For one scene in a garden, they allegedly bought and imported a gazillion expensive flowers that were out of season for a ruinous amount of money, and otherwise, through that whole show, demonstrated a lack of understanding about how to stretch a dollar or simply didn't care.
That doesn't make sense.
Henry, I think, is above such, and Amazon, we'd hope by now, has recognized some of its mistakes, but this would be an investment in the practical effects and sets, not unlike was done for Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Way to workshop creating armor, costuming, weapons, and the like. The good thing about this, since we are talking about a series of movies and shows, all of what they make should be reusable, and that value would go up the greater the effort and size of what they are doing with shows and movies. And brother, does Horus Heresy have a lot to it. How many books? 70? I cannot recall. The sheer amount of material from the Horus Heresy novels and other content gives Henry Cavill so much to work with. Let me make the following observation. A lot of the problem that showrunners for the Rings of Power or the Star Wars sequel trilogy and other runoff shows and movies is that they are only loosely based on the original works that got people hooked. They aren't adapting novels into screenplays. They were starting from scratch or attempting to create content based on general lore, as was done with the Rings of Power. Hell, in that example, Amazon didn't even have full rights to all of Tolkien's works, and they had to frog jump around, avoiding using certain words and names.
All you gotta do is say earmuffs to them. Earmuffs. They can say fuck, shit, bitch, whatever you want. Cock, balls.
So right away, if Henry is truly wanting to respect the IP, and he says he does, then adapting books to the big screen gives him huge advantages. Another problem that the showrunners for Star Wars sequels and the Rings of Power, and those for She-Hulk, the Loki show, and so many others, is that they were also trying to deconstruct the IPs, destroy them, or appropriate them with social political agenda. They were not trying to respect the source material, which is why Disney didn't go with the existing Star Wars books and canon, even loosely, and why Rings of Power butchered Tolkien.
To be the poster child of accessibility for people of color, for women.
It's not a secret, I'm the first of color, you know? So I thought also it would be beautiful to bring something that was of our people.
She is the first dwarf of color.
There will no longer be a time where you can say there are no elves of color. So we erased that one.
We are both activists off screen.
It's Middle Earth, there's never peace, right? If like Sauron is hot, I feel like people will be like, I can fix him.
Middle Earth.
Got goosebumps, man, like levels of cringe right now. Which that's like a level 5 cringe.
They were deliberately taking something people loved and destroying them, and insulting the fans. Really enjoyed insulting the fans, as that has become the standard operating procedure now for liberal actors, directors, and producers when facing the least backlash.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Henry Cavill, if he resists the heavy pressure to politicize Warhammer, has yet another huge advantage. He will be less constrained, not more, on what he can do, and the fans will be far more forgiving if he pursues all this with real effort to preserve the source material and respect it.
Apology accepted.
Yet another advantage for him is that many, if not all, of the writers of the Warhammer and Horus Heresy books are very much alive and still active. The Rings of Power showrunners did not have that advantage, and of course weren't the least concerned by that anyway for reasons already cited. Nor will Henry have the problem that the Game of Thrones showrunners had, in that the writer of the books that they based their show on hadn't even finished the series enough to prevent the showrunners from jumping in with their own middling writing ability, and being no longer confined to source material as they had run out, could then at their own leisure destroy their own show with insertions of left-leaning social politics, and horrible, truly horrible writing.
If we choose you, will you wear the crown? Will you lead the Seven Kingdoms to the best of your abilities from this day until your last day?
Why do you think I came all this way?
and amazingly managed to annihilate 6 seasons worth of character development and a few episodes of audio-visual sewage waste that was season 8. I leave out season 7 because it wasn't the dumpster fire that 8 was, but it was well along the path to transitioning into one.
Don't do that.
So Henry Cavill will be able to do the Horus Heresy or any other project with plenty of material already provided and in great depth, without any limitations because of a lack of rights to the IP. This situates him very well, and that will translate into profit and savings. The Horus Heresy has so much to it that he need not ever do anything else. They could easily generate a slew of movies and shows on this by itself.
God wills it. God wills it!
These are some weighty books as well. One of them could easily be stretched out over several movies or shows, but not so lengthy that consolidating a novel into just one show would mean losing too much. Again, it's a good problem to have when you got this much material. Cutting something down is so much easier than stretching something out with too little material to go on. Rings of power.
What? Were you saying something?
A challenge Henry will have with the Horus Heresy adaptation would still be a problem, I think, with others, though, to a much lesser extent. And these are technical and effects in nature mostly. Titans and Space Marines and huge battles and sets. Hell, in later books, we're looking at the seat of the Imperium on Terra, the Imperial Palace being nearly the size of a small country. There will be obstacles to presenting these in various situations, and not just in combat. The Heresy has Astartes, Custodes, and even Primarchs as the main characters in everything from casual conversations to duels, and then later on, full demons and the like, with the human characters being somewhat more in the background, with some notable exceptions like Euphrates Keeler, Remembrancers, and so on. This would be challenging, and if Henry goes this route, it would be ambitious, but there is never going to be a better time to do it. Active writers still being around to contribute to this effort, Star Wars and other IPs that might have been competition for Warhammer, now in flaming financial downward spirals into woke nightmare hell.
Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
Huge demand for this from fans, huge demand for this by everyone sick of the same crap and same leftist narrative being pushed in everything. The technology is there to overcome many of the hurdles. And once the heresy is done, everything that follows would have their themes and content have so much more gravity as we see in detail what mankind has truly lost. We go from the war in heaven to the aftermath. Let me additionally add that people just plain want to see Space Marines. Not one or a couple. People want Space Marines, and they want a lot of them. They want to see the legendary battles. They want to see hundreds or thousands of these guys fighting it out against whomever. This has been a long in-demand fantasy. If a 40-year-old Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back movie can show heavy combat that still passes muster today, then Henry should be able to do it as well, along with the other scenes without going over budget, unless he hires the showrunners and management staff of the Rings of Power, in which case he is screwed. Also, as a conservative guinea pig, I can honestly say all guinea pigs want to see lots of Space Marines. Right now, at home, if you own pet guinea pigs, they are jumping up and down for Space Marines.
Where did that come from?
But come on, guys. People want more than token glimpses of Astartes, Titans, Primarchs, and the rest. People will settle for what they can get, like a starving man desperate to eat will settle for a cracker.
If you're starving and somebody throw you a cracker, you're gonna be like this. God damn, that's the best cracker I've ate in my life.
But they'll never pass up a steak dinner for one. Now, I am hearing rumors, very, very unconfirmed, but nevertheless, it is floating around that Henry is indeed seriously considering doing the heresy, and that this is the favored direction as of this time. Again, this is unconfirmed, the leaker is unconfirmed, and I believe it is way too early for this to have already been decided and moving forward. I have to assume at this point that Henry is still considering options and nothing is set in stone. As for other possibilities, well, there are many. Any of the popular simpler ones would be fine choices. I rather favor Gaunt's Ghosts. We will see though. Who knows, maybe this video will find its way into Henry's hands and convince him to go with the Horus Heresy, in which case, if it fails, I deny ever having said any of this. Thanks for watching my video, guys. Please subscribe to my channel, it really helps. Like and share my video with your friends, and feel free to comment your thoughts and ideas below, including what topics you'd like to see me cover in the future. Have a blessed day.